Welcome to the Dynamics Compass podcast, where insights from experts will help Dynamics partners and users navigate their way through the rapidly evolving ecosystem. I'm your host, Rory de Goede, and today we're joined by Justin Carter. As the VP of Technology, Justin is one of Kafka latest senior additions to the team. He has over 18 years of experience in Microsoft Business Applications Consulting, giving him in-depth exposure to and insights into what does and doesn't work for customers when it comes to implementing new technologies. Justin has also been a BizApps MVP for 10 years now, recently. Well done. And whenever he has the opportunity, he helps his fellow Dynamics specialists around the world progress their career and personal situations as well. And rumor has it, Justin has got a talent for singing, which we should keep in mind for the next Dynamics community event. Justin, it's great to have you.
Good to be here.
All right. So we're still on the series on Copilot, and you're taking on what seemed to be a harder topic because it was hard to find people that wanted to take this one on. But we're going to talk about data readiness when it comes to Copilot. So I'll just start with the first question. As a customer, how do I know my data is ready to get the most out of Copilot?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and probably will be phrased as such within any meetings that you're in. Is our data ready? Your data is never going to be ready. Your data can always be better. Your data could always be more complete. So really, the way I would answer that question is, what are you trying to get out of Copilot, right? Obviously, your data has to be consolidated. It has to be relevant. It has to be well known. It has to be clean, relatively clean, right? Mm-hmm. So when we start talking about duplicate customers, when we start talking about outdated addresses, right, and zip codes, et cetera. I'm just talking from a customer perspective. Yep. If you're asking questions about what zip code, as an example, has the most overdue invoices. Well, that stuff changes all the time. So you're not going to get the right information if it's not up to date. So I would say you can look at your data set and have a series of business questions that you want to answer. And then on top of that, I would probably say, why do you want to answer those questions, right? What's the value that it's going to bring to your company? How are you doing that today? And what's the ROI on there? But then I would go into our data set and say, do we have all the data that we need in this data set to be efficient, right? Do we have that history of invoicing data, or did you just cut over last month? And we have very clean data. It's fantastic, right? It's the best data. Is my data ready? No, you have 1 month of data in here versus maybe 6 years of data, right? So we can start digging into quantifying what that means. Is my data ready? And it can mean so many different things. And I'll sit down with 5 different customers and I'm probably going to get a different answer every time. But generally about 80% of the time, it'll be relatively the same. So the best thing I would say is go in, answer these questions, really be honest with yourself on what you're trying to achieve from it. What are the things that you want to get out of it? Then identify what data Copilot's going to be looking at. You just do some general cleaning, like ask some very logical questions, like ones I just asked, whiteboard them. And then I'd say the best thing to do is don't let perfect get in the way of good enough when it comes to execution. Get Copilot in place and then, see if it makes sense, right? And if you start getting garbage out of this, and you're like, this is terrible, well, then don't roll it out, right? Garbage in, garbage out when it comes to Copilot. So then you know that, hey, it's not giving us the right results. We probably need to clean a couple more things. Maybe we needed some additional history. And then you're going to start getting experience. You're going to start being hands-on with it a little bit more. You're going to start getting trust in your data the more you actually dig into this. I'd probably say that would be the approach I would take.
Okay. Can I just clarify with that approach then to first ask what kind of questions do I want to ask Copilot? What do I want to get out of it? Is that just to that process that you just described? Is that to then determine your data quality, or even before adopting Copilot, you would go through that process?
Business objectives. It would be before you implement anything with Copilot. all too often, and I'm so sorry, Microsoft, if you're watching this, it's Copilot first. Let's put it in place. Let's see what we have, right? Let's see what comes out the other side. I really want to take an ROI business objective view when it comes to anything with AI, right? So if you're asking questions that you're super excited about and something maybe you're very passionate about in your industry, and it maybe just helps you out, is it worth spending 40, 50 hours and asking those questions? Or are there other broader questions you can spend your time on that maybe help 10 people within your organization? And so some people get very excited and then they're just off to the races, right? We know how that usually goes, right?
Yeah.
I can't wait to paint the side of my house. So I just got there and I start painting my house. Oh, I forgot to clean up all the stuff on the side. I just painted right over it. So, let's identify if the juice is worth the squeeze first.
Yeah. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of people are also taking the approach, and this could be more on user adoption potentially, but where companies are taking the approach to no one really knows yet the potential of Copilot. Let's get it. Allow like a trial team to play around with it and see what it can do. But you're saying no, already have a think about the things you want to get out of Copilot, even though not a lot of people know yet of its potential.
That's what I would do. Yeah. With Copilot, there's a lot of really cool opportunities and a lot of things that, people would love to see it do. Is it there yet? I don't know. I mean, this is all pretty new stuff. So
yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. I just come at it from an ROI perspective, right? What are you trying to solve? How are you trying to use it? I don't go out and I buy a hammer and I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to just start beating things with it. I'm like, well, I know I need a hammer because I have some nails and I need to build something. So let me go use the hammer. And then once I get really good at it, maybe I could do those fun YouTube tricks where you have the nail in the back and you hit it in there and then it helps you hammer the rest in. And then you can start getting fancy with it and you find new ways to use those tools and, you truly become an expert in it. But very rarely do you ever have a tool and just start playing with it and then come up with your business use cases.
That's funny because I do know plenty of people that just pass by a hardware store and they end up buying a tool because it's cool, but they have no use for it yet.
Yeah, I had that with I was getting into some woodworking, so I got one of those routers, right, where you basically have like picture a block of wood, like a 2x4. You can put these bits on there and you can make really nice, fun edges out of them or interlocking pieces. And I was like, oh, wow, I can't wait to do it. And then I got it. I'm like, well, I don't have anything to build with it yet. So it's just in my garage. So that's a Copilot sometimes is my router.
Next question then, with companies that don't think that their data quality is up to scratch, is there any point for them getting Copilot at that stage already?
Absolutely. So just because you don't know why you're going to use a woodworking router, it doesn't mean you can't get it and take a look at it and get excited watching YouTube videos and say, well, this would be something I really want to do on some weekend where I have some free time, but you never know what's going to happen when, your business is, hey, everything's great. We, closed a big deal. Now we have a little bit of a lull. Well, now's a really good time to get into Copilot Studio and start digging around, start with small data sets, start with small questions. I don't want someone to say, I don't know the ROI and I haven't done a formal ROI study in order to use Copilot. Not at all what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying you need to understand what you want to try to get out of it. Then you get the tool and you can play around with it. That's fine. I just wouldn't bring it to the mainstream yet in your organization without having those questions. Otherwise, it'll look like you're just wasting time playing with something when you go into a board meeting after spending 30 hours playing with this tool. So what does this help you do? Like what's the ROI gain on this?
Like, oh no, I did some cool stuff, but don't know what it added to the business.
Right. Yeah. It created an invoice for me or it created a sales order for me based on what I think the customer would want. But I still had to spend about an hour changing things because it was pretty far off. That doesn't sound very good when you say that's the end result.
Yeah. So clients asking you like, oh, what do I need to get ready then before I can implement Copilot? What advice would you give them?
Really good question. Not a lot, to be honest with you. I would say first and foremost, be on the cloud. There's still a lot of people that have the D365 on-premise environments or, there's just some like limitations functionally for them using Copilot. But once you have Copilot or once you're in the cloud, then you can start using Copilot. It's pretty easy to get into. I would probably say like at least understand the landscape of things.
Yeah.
So maybe watch some YouTube videos. There's so much content out there from creators that are MVPs specifically around things
Yeah.
like Copilot. Just kind of sit there and watch them, right? Whether you're working over here on one monitor and this is playing over here, and maybe you absorb 20% of it. Maybe you listen to a podcast about, Microsoft Copilot, maybe a case study, and you're, playing tennis with the ball machine or something, right? Just on your own, or you're hitting the gym. Just any kind of an immersion into that space is going to be something that'll help you get there. Now, we talked about this at the very beginning, right? When it's, clean data and all this, and it's obviously an iterative process, and, what's the actual ROI on here? And, when I see Copilot, I feel it's going to be fundamentally different from a BizApps perspective than it is today. I see today it being a very interesting tool for very limited use cases, but I could easily see it being rolled out in your entire ERP implementation where 80% of your job role is more of I'm looking at data and accepting, denying, feeding new inputs, it's making changes, and I'm clicking yes, no, versus the traditional data entry. And so, if we're looking at where we think it's going to be versus where it is now, maybe that also might help us adjust our short-term visions on how we're going to get value from it. So I did want to throw that little thought process in.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And would you say then, purely on data readiness, is there like a minimum bar that companies need to hit before they get Copilot then? Apart from being on the cloud, is there anything else that they should?
Not from getting Copilot. Not to be honest with you, no. I mean, you can get it and you can play with it. I do
You'll
feel that
find
there's a
out if
middle.
your quality of the data is good or not.
Yeah, because the way you phrased your question, that could be in a test instance, right? So you're just getting familiar with it. Maybe you're using some AI capabilities that aren't Copilot, things like the invoice capture for D365. You don't have to be ready for that, right? You don't have to have the customers all on board, saying, "Oh, I'm going to drop off my invoices in these different targeted locations," and D36 Finance is then going to go out there and pick that up. I mean, there's all sorts of factors. However, there's no reason you can't do it down in a lower test environment and play with it. And so I'd say get Copilot Studio. And let's say your data is like the worst in the world. It's unbelievable. I can't believe that we're doing business with this pile of data. It is a data swamp. And I can barely get in there because there's mosquitoes flying everywhere, right? Landmines. So even with that, you can create your own data sources and play with them. You don't have to use your company's data. You can start to become an expert on your own. And then, identify, what you could change within your current data sets to make your data more clean. You do have to walk before you run, but if you don't have an idea where you need to be with your data, and
yeah.
So yeah, no limitation. Get going.
Yeah. I think you've answered this question now already, but I wanna ask it so it's very clear for whoever's watching this. About data readiness, is it a one-time exercise or an ongoing one?
Ongoing, absolutely. Let's say that we went in, I looked at the data, we're working with the team, we go in and we make it sparkling. I mean, I'm talking perfect, perfect data. It's fantastic, right? Great. There's going to be a duplicate customer that gets entered literally the next day. The data is going to start getting junked up literally the next day. But we put in all the best practices when it comes to making sure that doesn't happen. Okay, it's still going to happen. When you have bad data in the system, it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, maybe having like a health check every now and then, whiteboard down, what we were talking about earlier, where you have to understand your data sets and understand what to you is clean data and what is acceptable. And then, maybe do like a once every 3 months check, right? Just making sure things are cleaned up and you don't have like some outstanding accounts receivable balance from 4 years ago that no one's dealing with, right? Yeah. You can go in and clean some of that up, take action on it. And then once you have those procedures and processes in place from a business perspective, just go in and keep revisiting it. But it's always going to be iterative. It's always going to be a battle. You'll have people in your organization that have been there 20 years, right? That own the data, and then they retire, they leave, they go on to a new adventure, and now you're left maintaining this process. And if you don't have it documented, yeah, I mean, it's going to change.
Yes. Yeah. With when you and I spoke before, you made a comment on if users don't trust the data, they're not going to use the tool because they think it will spit out low quality results. Should end users get involved then in getting the quality ready, the data ready?
I think that anyone who touches the data, some capacity, they should in some capacity be involved in the data cleansing activities. Do I think they need to own them? No. Do I think that needs to be a precursor to it? No. Do I think it helps in adoption for them to understand how Copilot is using the data? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Understanding the algorithms behind the scenes, and how it makes its decisions. And I think, the data transparency has been a topic that I know, a number of, leaders in the AI field have talked about, right? What's the algorithm for, YouTube or, Twitter or whatever? And people don't trust it, right? And then how do you get trust in that? Well, it's, transparency in data and algorithms. And so, how do we trust the data within Copilot? How can I validate that the data is good? Well, transparency in data. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. But I think that there's some pretty amazing things going on with like autopilot for cars, right? Like a Tesla. People still don't trust it, even though it may work 99% of the time, but they don't trust it 99% of the time. So why is that the case? Well, they don't trust the algorithm. So how do they trust the algorithm? Well, they get in the car and they start using it a little bit more. And oh yeah, now I understand it. And oh, it really doesn't handle very well when it's rainy outside, or here's these other conditions. And I really understand a little bit more about how it's using the data that's coming in from external factors for the car. And then just kind of over time they get used to it, even though they're not seeing the data. That can happen with AI too.
Okay, that's a really good take on that. I don't think I've got any other questions on this, unless you think there's any topics that I've missed with this. Like, is there anything else that I've overlooked when it comes to data readiness for Copilot?
Data readiness specifically? No, just understanding your data, right? And then understanding maybe that even though you have your data set, there may be other pieces of data that could help you formulate better results, right? So, as an example, within some organizations, they may want to ship data, or sorry, not shipping data. They may want to ship products, right?
Yeah.
But maybe those products can only be transferred from warehouse A to a customer if the temperature is of a certain degree, right? Maybe it's somehow sensitive to that information. Well, is D365 going to handle that for you? No. So maybe there are external web services that you can connect to that can start contributing that data. So when you say, hey, when can I have this delivery sent to me? You could say 5 days. Thumbs up. That's based on the data set that I see, right? Here's what I have right here in this box. 5 days. And here's the data, and it's 100% true. No, because it's going to be like 100 degrees. It's actually going to be like 20 days, right? We're going to put a shipping hold on it. And so you're out in the field and you're promising things without all the information. Yeah. It's what Copilot had, but it didn't have all the information. So maybe you could say, hey, this is a factor we know is important. We can somehow bake this into, to this algorithm. Then it's like, yes, well, I can have it, within 5 days. Hey, based on the 14-day forecast, we're really looking at, 20 days out. I'm so sorry. And so maybe Copilot could give you that kind of visibility. We can have it in 5 days, right to your door, but understand there's an issue when it comes to the temperature. And so having an empowered sales organization or, shipping department or AR group can really help customer service. And I think we talk about, going full circle here in our conversation. Copilot's always about the ROI and the business use cases to me when it comes to business applications. Mm-hmm. So we start talking about that, and hey, now they can say, yeah, I'm good with 20 days, but I'm going to need to double that order at that point, right? Because we may have a heat wave down the line. Well, now all of a sudden you're upselling and cross-selling and, coming across some of those scenarios just by having the right data at the right time. And Copilot can help you get that. So I do think you need to look at the ROI on those scenarios. But I think it's a pretty interesting landscape. And anybody that says I'm an expert in Copilot and AI, I mean, okay, for like the past 2 years, maybe a
Yeah,
year, maybe 6 months. So if you feel bad, like, oh, I don't know anything, I'm not an expert in this, it's okay. Most other people aren't either. Maybe they just have a little bit more experience than you do. And it's not like they're full time, 40 hours a week for the past 6 months, killing it in Copilot. That's
yeah,
going to be really rare. This might
yeah,
just be I'm watching Bridgerton in the background in the evenings and doing like 2 hours of Copilot. So
yeah,
don't don't let anything like that intimidate you, and just getting in and playing with it.
yeah.
That's
I've
about it.
seen the first Copilot job ad go up where they were asking for a Copilot subject matter expert on marketing and sales. Like, okay,
Oh,
that's it's starting, or the perception is starting that companies think they need that. But I agree with you. People are playing around with it part time, and
yeah,
gradually people become better and better at it, and it will unlock more potential for Copilot. Uh,
absolutely.
this has been very insightful, Justin. Thanks so much. Thanks for all you're doing for the community as well. Like being a 10 times MVP attests to that. But thanks, and I hope you keep going. And I'm very grateful that you were here today speaking on the Dynamics Compass podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun. I always enjoy doing these
All
anytime.
right. All right. Take care, Justin. Thanks for watching this episode on the Dynamics Compass podcast. We decided to launch this podcast after having spoken to a lot of people in the community who seem to be looking for answers to the same questions. So then why don't we find experts in the market that have the answers, interview them, and then release that information for free to help everyone progress their Microsoft Dynamics journey. So we hope that you found this video very informative and helpful for you to continue your journey and keep moving forward. If you would like to hear about any other topics, please write to me on LinkedIn, email me, rory@thegoodtalent.co, and we'd be happy to have a look. We'll look for the experts that have the answers. We'll interview them, and it will be freely available to you. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as well, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.